vending machine. Of course, not a physical machine here. Let's write a simple code just to mimic vending machine here. So what we'll do is, if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you have to give 5 candies, not a physically candies, but then we'll write only candies. So print candies. Okay, so if I say 1 candy, it's 1 time. So if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you will print candies 5 times. So that's what we want to do. So let's try it here. So first of all, we need a variable and we'll say x, and the value for this variable will be coming from user input. So we'll say int input, and in this bracket you will mention how many candies you want. Okay, once you got this statement, what I want to do is I want to print candies, right? So if a user says, hey, I want 5 candies, you will print candy 5 times. If you want to do something multiple times, you will simply use a loop. So we'll use a while loop here. Again, you can use for loop, that's your choice, okay? But I love for while loop here. So I will take a variable which is increment variable. I will say I is equal to 1, and then we'll use a while loop here, and we'll say if I less than equal to x, because depending upon the number of value a user is entering, will go for so many candies. And every time this loop runs, you will print candy. That's what we want to do here, right? And then after every statement, we need to also increment it. In fact, if you can write I equal to I plus 1, or you can use a shortcut here, which is I plus equal to 1, because we have seen that, right? So instead of saying I equal to I plus 1, we can also use I plus equal to 1, shortcut for the same thing. Now this should work, right? So this should work. Let's try. So if I run this code, you can see it is asking for the number of candies. I would say 4 candies, enter, you got candy 4 times. That means you're getting candies from the machine. And I will just run this code once again. This time I will go for, let's say, 8. And you can see we got candy 8 times, so it is working. Now here is a twist. The twist is, what if a user says, hey, I want 100 candies, okay? And then in your machine, in the vending machine, we don't have 100 candies. You have, let's say, 50 candies, or maybe 80 candies. So what you will do now, you have 2 choices. You can stop the transaction. You can say, hey user, we don't have so many candies. Or what you can do is, you can give 80 candies and you can say, hey, we are out of stock. Right? Can you do it here? So I want to do that here. So the available candies, I would say, I will use a variable called as AV, which is available candies. And let's say in my machine, I have only 10 candies, okay? If a user says 5 candies, no issue, you can take 5 candies. Example, if I run this code now, and if a user says, hey, I want 10 candies, that's completely fine. We have 10 candies. But if a user says, hey, I want 20 candies, we don't have that much, right? So what you will do here? So in that case, before printing candies, what we can do is, so here we can check if the value of I, because see, if you have 10 candies and if a user says we want 20 candies, what you can do is you can give 10 candies, right? So the value of I is important here. So if the value of I is greater than your number of available candies, which is AV, in that case you will stop the execution. Or we forgot 1 colon there. So we need to stop the execution. But which execution? Not the entire code execution, because maybe at the end of your code, outside your while loop, I want to print buy. So I don't want to stop the execution, because you can do that by saying exit or something. I don't want to end the execution of the code. I just want to come out of while loop. And the way you can do that is by using a statement called as break. The moment you say break, it means, hey, just jump out of the loop, right? So let me just run this code, and you can see it is saying how many candies you want. I would say I want 5 candies. No issue, you got 5 candies and you got buy as well. It should be get lost, right? Okay, so if I say 11 candies now, and you can see we got how many candies here. So we got 1. In fact, let me just reduce the number because it is difficult to count. We don't have much time. So I would say I want 6 candies, and see how many candies you got. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So total number of candies available is 5, but then a user says I want 6 candies. What you will get is only 6 candies, right? So this thing is important. So this is how you can stop, you can just jump out of the loop. So there are so many applications of this break statement. You can use it in your applications, but then this is how it works. So if you want to just jump out of the block, you can simply use break. In fact, if you wanted to print a message by saying, hey, we are out of stock, we can do that here. So you can say print out of stock. And now if you run this code, let's say I want 8 candies. You can see after printing 5 candies, it's saying out of stock. You know, this is what happens when you buy something, buy a new phone online. You know, we have this open sale. So some people can buy it and then it says out of stock. Anyway, so this is how your break statement works. The next statement we have is continue. Now the question is, so in the last video I have given you the assignment, which is you need to print numbers from 1 to 100 or 1 to 20, but then don't print the values which are divisible by 3 or 5. Okay, so you have to skip those values. So basically what I want is I want to print 1, 2, 3. I want to print 1, 2. I don't want to print 3. then because it's divisible by 3, I want to print 4. I don't want to print 5 because it's divisible by 5. I don't want to print 6 because it is divisible by 3. I want to print 7, 8. Then I will not print 9 because it is divisible by 3. Okay, so I want to skip those numbers. How can we do that here? Of course, we'll shorten the code. We'll not be focusing on 5, only focus on 3, okay? So I want to print all the values from 1 to 100, but then I want to skip those values which are divisible by 3. And to do that, what I will do is I will write a code, and this time we'll go for for loop, okay? We can go for while loop or for loop, your choice. I will say for I in, and then we'll use a range here, and I will go till 101 because that's what I want to go for. I don't want to print 0, so let me start with 1. Okay, so that's my for loop, and then I just want to print the value of I. Now what will happen? It will print all the values. It will print the values from 1 to 100. Let's check it out. So let's say run, and you can see we got all the values. But I don't want to print all the values, right? I don't want to print the value which is divisible by 3. In that case, what I will do is I will say if my I value, which is I mod 3, is equal to 0. Okay, let's not use round brackets there. If this is equal to 0, in that case, I just want to skip the remaining statements. Okay, when I say remaining statement, I don't want to skip the statement outside the loop. Example, if I say at the end, it's a good idea to print by at the end because at least you will know what is happening. So what will happen now is when you say for I in range 1 to 100, every time you say if it is 3, in that case, I don't want to print I just want it to continue with the loop. Let me just run this code for you. Oh, we got an error. What's wrong? Oh, we are missing one thing, right? Now, how will you continue? So you have to say a statement which is continue. So continue will skip the remaining stuff. So if I run this code, and you can see we got all the values, and look at the output now. We got 1, 2, there's no 3 because it is divisible by 3. We don't have 6, again, we don't have 9, we don't have 12. So this is how you work with continue. So what continue will do, it will skip the further execution. If you say continue, it will not jump out of the loop. It will only skip the remaining statements. In fact, in the assignment, what we have done is, so in the assignment question, it was 3 or 5, right? So we can say or, we have to use a or symbol here. So we have to say or I mod 5 is equal to 0, right? So now it will skip all the values which are divisible by 3 or 5. So you can see we don't have 3, we don't have 5, we don't have 9, we don't have 10, right? So this is how it works. In fact, we can also do it for and. So only skip those values which are divisible by 3 and 5. Example, 15, right? So we have 30, so all these values. So if I run this code once again, and you can see it will skip only those values which are divisible by both. In this case, it is 15. You can see we don't have 15. So that's how you can practice, So we have continue here. It works, right? So the next one we have is pass. Now when you will use pass, so just imagine we want to print 1 to 100, okay? So I want to print all the values, but then I don't want to print those values which are, let's say, odd numbers. Okay, again, we are going for a very simple example. I don't want to print values which are odd numbers. So my condition here is don't print odd numbers. See, I'm not thinking about even, I'm thinking only on odd numbers. So my logic here is on odd. How do I check odd? So I will say, I want to print the value of I, but it should not be an odd number. So in that case, my condition is only on odd. So I want to print in else condition. So I will say in else you have to print this. So if I mod 2 is not equal to 0, then don't do it, but only if it is in the else condition I want to print it. Right? That's what I'm trying to do here. Now I know you will be saying, what if you simply use even, if you check for even and print it? But imagine if you have a scenario where you are checking for the odd values. You're not focusing on even, you're focusing on odd. In that case, I want to print it in else part. But then you can see it will not work. You can see it is giving you an error. You cannot simply put an if as an empty block, right? So in that case, you will say, hey, I don't have anything here, I'm typing pass. So pass simply means, hey, there's no code, ignore it, right? So just pass the if block. In fact, in other languages like C, C++, we have curly brackets, so we can fill it up. But unfortunately, we don't use curly brackets here, so we have to use pass. So if I run this code, you can see we got all the values, all even numbers. Oh, we got all the values which are not odd, okay? So just rephrasing the point. So that's how we use break